Hello and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I am Justine Reichman, your host, and today we have Daniel Baertschi, someone who is in the food movement and is a leader in the regenerative food system. And so I'm excited to have you here, Daniel. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So, okay, I hear an accent. I detect an accent, and it sounds like you're from the German part of Switzerland. Is that correct?
Yeah, I grew up in the German part of Switzerland. I spent some time in the French-speaking part, and I was working in international development cooperation. So that's kind of a mix. And I feel my English is not perfect, but I hope people will understand.
Well, your English is much better than my French and my German. I had gone to St. Gallen years ago, and I
Yes.
didn't speak any German. And I originally, when I went to Switzerland, I thought, oh, I'll use my French, no problem.
Yeah.
That was not the case.
Yeah, St. Gallen, it's difficult to find people who speak French. Yes.
I will say the upside is because they're Swiss, they're very organized in their directions, and everywhere I
Exactly.
drove, it told you exactly where you needed to go. It's
Exactly.
very organized.
That's true.
In any case, so for those of you who aren't familiar with me, my name is Justine Reichman, and my goal is to create a platform or provide a platform for food and beverage entrepreneurs to be able to gain insight and expertise and demystify some of the questions we have around building more local, healthy, regenerative food businesses. So today on my quest to do that, I have Daniel here, Daniel Baertschi, to talk about a little bit about what it is to build a regenerative business. So I'm eager to hear from him a little bit about what it is to build a regenerative business and equally what a regenerative product is like. So Daniel, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, I'm Daniel. I grew up on an organic farm in Switzerland in the Emmental. Maybe you know the famous cheese from the Emmental. And actually my family was producing cheese. And back in the 60s, this cheese was even exported to the US. That's the interesting connection we have with the US, that we produce cheese that was consumed in the US. Then I studied agronomy because I couldn't take over the farm from my parents because my brother.
You started what?
Agronomy. So I studied agronomy, yes, high school and then college. And then I was involved in different jobs as an agricultural consultant in international development corporation. And then I joined an organic farmers association where I was a CEO for 8 years. And yeah, that helped me really to discover the whole complexity of our food production, of the food system, and how we have to somehow accept natural limitations we have and get rid of chemicals, get rid of pesticides. And that was kind of the story why I arrived here, and my goal is really to regenerate ecosystems and help farmers to do that, because I think we have a wonderful planet, we have wonderful nature, and working with nature is much better than to try to work against nature.
I would agree, and I'm so inspired just hearing you say that, because this is really what moves me and gives me the passion and the drive to be able to continue to provide a platform for people to learn more about this. So what inspired you to focus on building a regenerative food system?
Well, I realized that we have now kind of disconnected systems, especially in the food system. We have a disconnect between the farmer and the consumer. And my goal is really to bring back this kind of relationship between the consumer and the farmer, and also to see how we can restore or regenerate ecosystems together. Because as a consumer, you have a massive power, because with your decisions, what to buy and what to eat, you can influence the work of the farmer. And every farmer, in fact, I have met and I meet this, they focus on how we can improve our soil health. Doesn't matter what production system, but every farmer understands that soil health, that's the foundation for good food production. And it really motivated me to focus on soil health, but also to find out how we can increase biodiversity, how we can also increase profitability of farms, because I think not everybody knows, but most of the farmers, they're really not well paid. They don't have a big salary, they don't earn a lot of income. And to help farmers to earn more from their work, from their land, not having to expand or to have more animals on the farm, it's a big goal, because you can't just I mean, it's difficult for a farmer. There are a lot of risks involved. You have weather, you have diseases, etc., etc. And it's no way just to put all the responsibility on the farmer, but also consumers have some responsibility. And I want to bring back this relationship with the farmer, with the food, with the soil, so that well, people have to understand we live from soil, and without soil there is no life on our planet Earth.
Right. So you say bring back the relationship. So how do you think we lost it? What do you think happened?
Well, it started with industrialization, because before that, almost everybody was some kind of farmer. At least they had some kind of garden or some kind of even animals, small animals at home. So they had kind of a natural relationship. They knew where it comes from. But today with the supermarkets, with the processing companies, there is kind of a disconnect. So if you buy something, you don't recognize that as kind of that's real food, but it's processed food. And I think people, of course, that's convenient. You have, it's easy to go shopping because you have everything in a supermarket, but you lose this kind of relationship with real food. And I think it's something that has to do with a limited time people have in these days to care for their food. People, they don't now know how to cook sometimes. And the funny thing, for example, in Switzerland, it was compulsory for girls to learn cooking at school, public school. But at some point in time, it was seen that that's not a good approach. Then they introduced cooking for boys too. And at some point in time, they get rid of that because they felt there's no value in that compared to mathematics, chemistry, physics. But I think that's a big value for somebody if you know how to cook and how to prepare food from raw material you get from the farm.
I would agree. But given everything that's going on, it's not a but, it's just that given everything that's going on right now with COVID, I feel like we're getting back to this conversation and connection with the farmers. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, that was really an interesting development that especially during the lockdown time we had in Switzerland between March and June, there was a huge increase in demand from farm shops and direct delivery from farms. And some farmers in Switzerland, they tripled their business just in 3 months. Of course, now after the lockdown stopped, it was going back a little bit to the old state, but it's still higher than above. It's maybe 10 to 20%. And especially what was interesting, there was a huge demand for cooking classes, online cooking classes and cooking books. And that's something I think because people had to stay at home, they couldn't go to restaurants, they had to find out how we can prepare food. And they were somehow rediscovering, well, it's not so complicated to cook finally. I mean, it's just having the ingredients, having a good equipment, and then just go on and do it. And, people, they just, I think COVID also helped them to understand there is a relation between how we treat nature and how we can live on this planet. Because I think we can agree on the fact that COVID was also somehow influenced by the loss of biodiversity, and that people entered natural areas that were not really suitable to them. And that's something I think we have to learn from COVID, and not only to avoid another crisis like this, but also to avoid a bigger crisis, which is loss of biodiversity and the climate change we have now.
I'm thinking about this and I'm saying to myself that COVID has really changed my behavior. I really always went to the farmer's market, but I started to go exclusively to the farmer's market and exclusively ordering from CSAs and exclusively to my butcher or my farm where I get my meats. And I did that for a lot of reasons. One is because I know the importance of going directly to them. Two is because I've chosen these CSAs and these farmers because I like that the way that they create or produce their product. And then I've developed a relationship with them as well. And so I'm very relationship driven, and I like to go to the person that I know. Now, I was doing this before. I would say that it got exacerbated and heightened during COVID, which is still going on. Mm-hmm. But for me, this is going to continue. Mostly, I built the relationships, and I like what I've learned, and I'm taking that information and I'm making more informed choices as a result. And I'm learning that, what's the difference between grass-fed and grass-finished, and You know, what happens if there's no grass? Do they starve, or are they feeding them corn? All these kinds of questions. But what can we do for the rest of the population? How do we make sure that those behaviors and that thought process continues to evolve to be able to maintain that connection and relationship with the farmers?
I think that it starts with children. I mean, if you give children the opportunity to visit the farm and to have some exposure to a real farm life, a real farm experience, and that's something which is quite interesting in Switzerland. We have a lot of school classes. They visit farms, maybe for one day or even for 1 week. So they see how the farmer works and what it takes to produce, for example, milk or apples or potatoes. And that's not just a quick thing. It takes time, and it takes care for animals, care for plants. And that's something I think to start with children is a good choice, but also to help people to better understand what it takes to produce food. And that's all about communication, information. And there I see a big task for farmers also to reach out to people and to communicate proactively. And I like, for example, people like Joel Salatin, who opens his farms for visitors, and he has 25,000 people on his farm. And I think with that direct relationship between the farmer and the consumer, there is a dialogue. And it's really to building a bridge. I think we can build bridges between the two sides and somehow also, let's say, exclude the middleman, who takes a lot of money out, and find people who are really wanting to discover more. And I think the other part is that if you focus more on health and healthy food, it's always important to know where does the food come from. And I feel that if you know the farmer and the farm where the food is produced, that also helps you to better understand, is that food healthy or not? Because then you can really ask what products do you use and what kind of treatments do you make, and then you get some first-hand information. Of course, not every farmer will do that, but I see it in Switzerland that a lot of the younger farmers, younger generation, they're really open to the consumers, and they feel that, well, if they open their farm, there's no risk, but there's only a benefit involved. Because, well, if you have some disease and you need to treat, at least you can declare why, and people can understand, well, that's the reason why. And then it's a dialogue, and over time I think it creates kind of a food network, local food networks, and that creates stability. So if there is a disease, or if there is if there's no harvest, people are not just shifting away and going to other products, but they understand, well, we have now to deal with the fact that we have less food from that part, and we take it from the other part. So it's about building bridges and creating better understanding.
So, you know, I know that you're very active in this movement. And what do you think have been the greatest challenges you've seen? Like maybe the top 3 challenges you've seen in communicating this and imparting this information to create change?
Well, the first, of course, is awareness, because to create awareness, it takes a lot of time, because people are so overwhelmed with a lot of information these days that to find their time where we can just give them some information, that's the main challenge. So reduce the noise of the world. That's one of the challenges we have. And the second, of course, we have big players. They really don't like to get rid of chemicals in the agriculture industry because it creates profits. It's a business. And from my experience in the organic sector, organic world, I see that the big guys, they don't like to change their business model. So they want to keep that business model, and that's not really a business model that is made for the betterment of soil. Let's put it that way, and thus not really the focus on the health and quality of the food, or, for example, the ingredients, the inner quality of food. There was not so much focus on that. And the third one is standardization. I think we live in a world where there's a lot of standardization, and in the food business, standardization creates a lot of food waste and doesn't add value to the consumer at the end, because more diversity in your food creates a better food balance. And I think this uniform standards we have, even in the organic sector, doesn't really help. Of course, it helps the processing plants, but I think that's there's too much standardization and too much processing involved now.
So what's the impact you hope to have on a personal level to be able to create change within these challenges?
Well, my goal is really to connect with people, and in Switzerland we created kind of an umbrella organization that integrates farmers, processors, traders, consumers, and or other organizations, for example, producers of biochar or compost tea, just to build this kind of network between different actors in the food system. And my goal would really be to have a system that is logical from the field to the plate, that doesn't create food waste, that doesn't need agrochemicals, that takes care of biodiversity, is able to regenerate soils, increasing soil organic matter, and that we have a system that basically regenerates our planet. And it's possible with the food we eat, we can make this choice. And my goal is really that people make better choice and they understand what kind of influence they have in the system. And I think people need to realize that, well, with their money, they can decide the future of the world and how they spend the money and what's the priority for their spending. That's has a huge impact on our planet.
I think it'd be really interesting as for consumers, and I'm sure you do this. I mean, but to understand the impact that they can have with their dollar and by the choice and with the choices that they make. Can you give us an example?
Well, if you buy vegetables, of course, you can look at the cheapest price, or you have certified organic or what else. But at the end, it's important that the vegetables that are produced have a higher inner value, a lot of vitamins, minerals. And for that, you need to know where it has been grown. And you need somehow to find out where is it imported? Has it a long transport distance? Was it produced with a lot of cheap labor and things like that? And I think people they really can understand that it's not about the price, but it's about quality and price. It's about the value. And I think if people understand the value of good food, they will be able or be willing to spend more, because this relationship between health of the plant and health of the human beings, that's important to understand. And the question is only how we can somehow give this transparency about the inner quality of a product to the consumer. I think consumers need to ask questions. I think my advice is always just ask questions. Doesn't matter if you go to the farmer markets, to the farm directly, to the supermarket, just try to ask questions and try to find out what's behind that food, what's behind the label, and what's behind this marketing messages we get every day. And just be a little bit suspicious, just be like a cat, not like a dog as a consumer.
Are there any specific questions you think would be really impactful for people to ask?
I think it's the basic question, where does it come from?
Where
Just
does, okay. And I think what
where was it be growing?
you were talking about health, and that's really, I think, an important thing here is I don't know that people really understand, or maybe they do, but I think, I'm making a gross generalization by saying I don't think people do. I think some people do, but other people don't have the awareness around the impact it can have, where your fruits and vegetables come from, what's in the soil. And I'll give you an example is, a lot of times I feel like I've gone out of the city to the countryside somewhere. And there's times when I feel like people are like, oh, they're just going for the cheapest. And I'm like, why? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, it's just the cheapest. I said, well, did you look at organic? This is 20 years ago, organic was much more expensive. Today, many times it's the same price. Many times it's a little bit more, but it's not that unapproachable anymore. And so I think people had a stigma about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they didn't even question it, and they thought it was maybe a luxury as opposed to something that was accessible. And now that it's accessible, maybe more people will be open to understanding the impact it will have both for their health and wellness as well as the planet by buying something and understanding where it was grown. Mm-hmm. I can only hope, right?
I think there is really hope, because if you see the younger generation, the climate strike movement, they really ask the right questions, and they're very skeptical about all the marketing promises from big companies. I think in future, food must be climate friendly to be accepted by the younger generation. That's the game changer. I think if we can make this relationship between better food and better climate and combine that to outcomes, that would be a big game changer for the future, I think, because the younger generation, at least what I see in Switzerland, where they don't have the money to buy a lot of, let's say, better food because they are students or just in school, in high school, but in 10 to 20 years, they have families and they will be very, very important to bring forward this regenerative agriculture movement globally. And that's my hope. I think I'm an optimist in general, and I always have hope because I look for the positive examples. And if you look at the general situation, of course, you can be depressed. But I see the positive examples, and I see, for example, in Switzerland, there are a lot of farmers, doesn't matter if they're organic or not, but they focus more on soil health. They do a lot of things to improve soil health, and they also reach out to consumers. And that ball is rolling. Nobody will stop that ball, and that's my hope.
Well, I also think it's really important with some of these farmers that are smaller, at least here in the US, it's really expensive to become certified organic. And I think it's important for everyone to understand what questions to ask so that even if the small farmer is not organic, it doesn't mean that they don't have the same practices.
Exactly.
And I think it's our responsibility, it's their responsibility also to communicate it, but it's our responsibility to ask the questions so that we can support those smaller farmers trying to build more regenerative practices and better products for us to access.
And to be honest, I mean, to be honest, we need to certify the non-organic farmers. They need to declare that they use chemicals. That not the organic farmer has to pay a lot of money to be certified that he uses no chemicals. It should be reversed. Yes, exactly, exactly.
I agree. I agree. So I know you're in Switzerland and I'm here in Northern California, and I'm sure you're seeing all the fires that have gone on here, right? I mean, this is
yes, of course, of course.
Going on.
Not the first time, but that's the worst, I guess.
I'm originally from the East Coast, and so this is about the third year that I'm here experiencing it. And my eyes and my nose and everything is really being agitated. But my question comes to you, and I don't know that you're going to have the answer, but I'd love to just chat about it for a minute and see what your thoughts are. Is a couple of years ago, we had the big fires and houses were burned. And so you had all the stuff in the house. It's the plastics, the toxins, the stereos. And so it's got to go into the soil. It's got to go into the soil. And this year we have the fires and it's ash. But I'm wondering, it's going to impact the soil for all these farmers. And I don't know what that means in the short term or the long term. I don't know what it means for the health of our products, even though right now they're saying it's fine. But how do we know? And how do we plan for that?
I would be a little bit suspicious if they say that there is no problem, because there is a problem, but it's not new. I mean, you find plastic in rainfall. I mean, that's because plastic is everywhere now, microplastics. And this fire just will add a little bit on top of the existing pollution we already have in soil. I think, soil, we have a lot of diversity. If you have a healthy soil, there's a lot of diversity, a lot of potential to get rid of this problematic plastic, etc., because soil can regenerate, be regenerated with microbial activity, and of course, if you have an active soil, that's not a big problem. But if you have a soil that is already dead, if there is no microbial life, that's again adding more burden to regenerate. And my goal is really that we can really understand what's the importance of soil life and how we can help soil life to thrive and to get rid of this problematic stuff. And I think the fire, to be honest, I think there has always been fire, and there will always be fire. But it's just how we manage natural ecosystems. And I have the impression that we need to better understand the whole system, because a lot of people, they just look at the fragmented piece. Where there's a fire, we have to somehow deal with the fire. But there's a reason for that. There is an ecosystem that is not balanced. And if we don't put ecosystem back in balance, that will continue and be even worse. I mean, if you take Australia last year, it was one of the worst fires. But in ancient times, the Aboriginals, they always had fires. Even they made the fires in the landscape just to restore that, because that was a natural process, but not at the scale we see now. So a wildfire is never a problem, but it's just the scale. And let's say the frequency of wildfires, that creates problems. And in a healthy ecosystem, healthy forest, a fire is never a problem. It will regrow, and that's no problem. But in a degenerated forest, I mean, that's the end. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your point of view on that. I think it's really been top of mind for so many people here. We're very focused on buying local and accessible and regenerative products, and the impact that this is going to have for years to come is really interesting, and I think an important conversation that everyone needs to have.
Yes, yes, yes.
So as you're building this regenerative culture, what are some of the greatest challenges that you're seeing in communicating your message and getting people to be part of this narrative and think this way?
I think people are a little bit tired to be educated what they should do. And a lot of people, they tell me, well, don't tell me what they have to do, because I have heard it so many times. So the main challenge, I would say, is that to create a positive attitude and to see it as a positive development if we buy food from regenerative farm, that it's not only positive for the planet, but it's also positive for me. It has a better taste, it has more nutrient density, it's better for my health. And if we are able to create this message that well, you can reduce your health expenditure, your health costs with healthy food. Of course, it's if you take science, they don't agree, but let's put it that way: science is not always
The
reality;
exact
it's just
science.
science. But I have the impression, if people understand, well, I can influence my health status with the food I eat, and it's not about counting calories and that you can get rid of that, but just buy maximum unprocessed food. Just if you have a plate, fill it half with vegetables, and the rest you just have different proteins and for some starch based food, but just balance it, and then look that it's not really highly processed, and
Right,
get rid of sodas, of drinks. Just drink
right,
fresh water from the source, or from the bottle if you don't have a source. But just, I would say, it's about rediscovering the basics
right.
of
I
our
agree.
food, and then to make it attractive so that people see it as a beneficial to move to the new normal, I would say. But that was the old normal, and just rediscovering what was how our grandparents were just doing it, and sometimes we can relearn from the past, I guess.
I definitely would think so. And I think in many ways we go back, we go back to the beginning again. And we establish those relationships, even buying from farmers is like they did many, many years ago. So I would agree. Who are some of the major stakeholders to align in realizing the full potential of this movement?
Well, my goal is really to train farmers, to coach farmers, and to support farmers to make that transition. And regardless of their certification or production system, I think every farm has room for improvement. And our goal as an association, we train farmers, and we also share experiences, best practice. And I think if the farmers understand better what to do, they can influence the whole system. And then, of course, we need to work. We still need to work with the big companies like the Nestle's, the Cargills, etc. Try to influence them in a positive way. And to be honest, that's a big task. But I have the impression that if we don't work with the big companies and we try to convince them to shift to a new system, that will be difficult really to have a certain outreach and a certain presence on the market. And it's quite promising that at least big corporations here in Switzerland are quite interested in this movement. And they even think about investing in training farmers to improve soil health. And that's very promising. And of course, then we need also to work with the, let's say, with the corporations that provide microbials or natural disease control products. I think there is a huge potential to get rid of agrochemicals with alternative nature-based products. Even aromatherapy could be a system that would be helpful to get rid of insects in a lot of places. And I think it's really about working with the whole system. And if we don't have this whole system view, we just work on a fragmented basis, and that doesn't really help to resolve the problem. So my goal is based on organic principles and beyond organic certification, to create a movement that is not based on labels, but based on transparency and trust. And if we
I
are
love
able
the
to
word.
create that, that would be the game changer. And not not the last point is to work with chefs, with restaurants, with people who really understand what's the importance of the quality of the product they buy, and to have them, to give them more influence. I guess that would be very important.
I couldn't agree more. And we're trying to bridge that gap also. And if there's a way for us to collaborate, I mean, we just had an interview the other day with a woman who is the executive director of the Hydration Foundation, who wants to work with chefs to talk about how plants can be more hydrating than water, and to be able to talk about the soil and where these products are coming from together with that. And the chef would be an amazing thing, I think. I think it can be really impactful. And I think that if we work together with the chefs and some of the farmers and some of people like Gina Bria, who's the executive director of the Hydration Foundation, we might be able to change what people expect, to inform them, to provide a new way for them to think about it.
Exactly.
In a healthy way. And it also can educate the end consumer, because they want to, they're going to start to ask, if they're not already, you know, how do we maintain our health? How do we eat healthier?
Exactly.
People are becoming much more aware, and they want to be able to live healthier and have and protect the planet. And having these kinds of roundtable discussions is just some of the things we're trying to do at Essential Ingredients. So maybe we can bring you back for a conversation with a chef and with some farmers, and we can all have this conversation. And even bring back some end consumers, right? So that they can, what are the questions that they are asking? I'm sure they're different than what chefs are asking.
Exactly.
And
I think it's always about understanding each other better so that we can respond and create more awareness. And I have made the impression, I have made experience here in Switzerland, that consumers, if they understand better what's going on, they make better decisions. And it's not only about, you know, if there is a question, you just check the box, yes, I buy organic, but it's to helping them to have access and to understand, why is this price at this level? What's involved, and what do I pay with the price? What do I pay with the money?
Why is it important?
Exactly. And then if you understand that you pay a lot of money for the marketing machinery of the big companies, then you really start to understand, well, should I not rather invest in the quality of the product and spend more for a product, and not only for marketing, help companies to market better? Because to be honest, I think marketing for food is not very ethical, because food should be accessible for everybody, and it should be not somehow supported by marketing messages, because I mean, I know what I want to eat, basically. I don't need the marketing guy to tell me what I should buy. Our body is able to express himself or itself to tell us what the body wants, and we don't need marketing. Well, I know there are a lot of people that don't like me for that, but I have the impression we can spend much less money on marketing and much more on the quality of the product and better support for the farmers. And if you pay farmers better, that would automatically result in better production, better ecosystem services, because now we have farmers, they're really under pressure. I mean, the suicide rate of farmers in Switzerland is 37% higher than in the compared male group of the population. And so you can understand there is a lot of pressure on the farmers, because they're the least ones, and they're somehow the last in the chain. But we should put them first, put the farmers first, and the rest will follow.
Wow, I think that's a staggering number. I was shocked. I heard that it was high, and it's high in a variety of different places, but that number is just staggering. And if that doesn't make somebody rethink things, I don't know what will, because that's unacceptable in my mind.
Yeah, of course it's shocking, and of course as a single person you don't have an influence, but still as a society we have, I would say we have a responsibility to balance that system. And I think we should pay farmers better for ecosystem services. For example, if they build up soil organic matter, they should be paid because they put carbon in soil. And we need to find systems that pay farmer better for, let's say, services they provide to our society, besides producing food, which is the main goal, of course. But if they restore ecosystems, if they protect water, if they increase biodiversity, it has a positive impact on the whole society. And if we don't do it, our children and grandchildren, they will pay the price. And
Right.
that's not ethically acceptable.
No, I would agree. Is there a story you could share about the most gratifying moment that will allow that will allow or enable people to better understand the impact connecting the dots had for you?
Well, it was really about when I know I know I grew up on a farm, so it was quite natural to me. But it was first when I was in Africa. I
Mhm.
was in West Africa in Mali for 1 year, and there it was just it stuck me in the head that they were consuming bread that was produced with imported wheat from France that was subsidized, and
Mhm.
this subsidized wheat was just destroying the local market for the local food production. And that really that was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe that there is a system that just kicks farmers out of business with imported subsidized foods. And by the way, this food was not really healthy, so you have increased health costs by importing bad food. So that was really the moment I told myself, well, I should really work against that and put some balance in our food system, and especially local food production. I mean, I'm not against bananas from Central America from time to time, but strawberries in January doesn't make sense here in Switzerland, where strawberries grow in May or June. And I think we just need to rediscover that food has seasonality, and food is not accessible the whole year in the same quality. And that also our grandparents, they lived that system, and they also could survive. So it's not about survival, to go back to an old system, but somehow the experience in Mali told me that, well, this is so imbalanced and this is so insane. Why is it happening that way? And that was really the moment I decided to work against this kind of imbalanced or fragmented food system.
Well, I mean, I think that that's super interesting. That really talks to your passion and what inspired you, because I think we all have our moments
Exactly.
where it changes for all of us. And I think through this conversation, you brought a lot of things to the table about health for ourselves. And I think a lot of what we're finding is that people are looking at food as medicine too.
Mhm.
So if we continue to look at food as medicine and we continue to look at the source for where it comes from, and more people understand that food can be medicine or utilized in that way, and that we do this as a way to stay healthy, live longer, regenerate the planet, have a healthier planet.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
exactly.
I mean, there's no better reason to do this, right? I mean,
Yeah, and it's fun. Actually, it's fun because it's better. Food will taste better, and it will be more diverse food, and you make new experiences. And I think there's a lot to discover, and it's a win-win-win situation. I mean, it's good for the planet, it's good for your health, and it's good for the climate. So why don't we change? There's no
I
reason.
would agree. And to that effect, to that end, did you have a favorite recipe during the pandemic?
Well, I
Favorite food
like this
recipe?
recipe from Israel, shakshuka. It's
Okay,
tomato with eggs, and my wife is preparing an excellent shakshuka, and I mean that's still my favorite.
I
But
love shakshuka
I'm very happy to have a wife who is really a good cook, and I benefit always from her skills.
Yeah, I would can completely embrace that. I love to cook, although I do find that during this whole pandemic time, it takes a lot more to continue to clean up the kitchen and keep it neat and buy the food and prepare the food. And it's taken it to a whole nother level. And I love to cook and I really enjoy it. Um, I do find that I just end up cooking and cleaning and cleaning and cooking and cooking and cleaning a whole lot
And
more.
we added planting vegetables in our small garden in this time.
Me too. I know, but that's more fun. Right now I have
Exactly.
zucchini going out there and mint, and I'm like, oh, what salad can I make with my
Yes.
mint?
Yes.
My favorite one to make is cucumber, watermelon, lemon juice, olive oil, some Celtic sea salt, and fresh mint.
Okay. Great.
So
Yeah.
simple, right?
Yes, yes, yes. I always feel that you don't have to create sophisticated meals. It can be very simple and very tasty and very a lot of fun.
I would agree. So, is there any things that you could share on how you're coping with COVID for our listeners here today?
Well, for me, it's important about the mindset. Don't be afraid of COVID. just look on your lifestyle, just eat healthy food, fresh food, and go outside. Just don't worry too much about COVID, because I mean, that's a disease. It's dangerous somehow, but people have a lot of resistance. And if you care for yourself, you strengthen your immune system. And so don't feel somehow depressed, or just feel well, that's the end of the world. No, it's a crisis, but we can overcome the crisis. I mean, we as human beings, we have a strength, and we have seen other crises, and just it's important to focus on the positive things and on yourselves. Just take care of yourself. That's the most important thing.
I think that's great advice. Is there any, if our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, you're going to download the NextGenChef app and upload your information, but maybe you could just let them know how else they might be able to find you or learn more about your organization.
Yeah, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So you find me on LinkedIn on the Daniel Baertschi one. It's one word. And of course, just feel free to contact me. And the organization is called Agricultura Regeneratio. It's a Swiss-based organization. We still only operate in German, but hopefully in a couple of months, we will be able to expand your languages to first French, then of course English. And we are a platform that is providing information and also connecting people, for example, consumers that want to buy milk from cows where that live in healthy context, and for example that the calf can be the whole life with the mother and things like that. So we create a platform for consumers, producers, just to bridge the gap.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daniel, so much for joining us. And I want to thank all our listeners today for joining us on Essential Ingredients. If you like this and you want to hear more of these kinds of interviews and conversations, don't forget to subscribe to NextGenChef. And you can find our talks on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and all the other channels. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much
for joining
us.
us.
It was a pleasure.